When will we get to see Best of 80s Horror Movies Part 6 music video? That's a good question. I don't know. So, those were like some of the first videos that I posted on YouTube, were those compilations or mashups. And it was basically me just wanting to keep editing. When I was younger, I used to make these no budget horror and action movies with my family and friends. And I had this big ass Casablanca video editor. We shoot with a camcorder and we'd edit footage. So, if you watch some of those, best of 80s horror mashups that I did, they were edited on that really low tech editor. And it was kind of like my foray, into YouTube was making those. And I haven't done one of those in years since I started doing the reviews. So I don't know if I'll, do another one. Plus, I don't know if there's any horror movies left to do since I think I got them all in the first five. So part six would most likely be like whatever's left of 80s horror, not necessarily the best of 80s horror. But I haven't thought about that in a while. But I'll keep that in mind. So thanks. Is there anything new you want to try on the channel? We just haven't had the time to do it. Yeah, there's been several things I've wanted to do, from a podcast to movie commentaries. The one thing that I've been wanting to do for a while that I'm actually going to do with the next volume of Monster Mash mini reviews is I'm going to focus on more popular and mainstream 80s horror movies. I feel like it's a good way for the channel to get some growth. And there's been a couple movies, and franchises that I've wanted to talk about, but editing those are a little more time consuming. But that's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I'm going to do that with the next batch of Monster Mash mini reviews next year. Do you have any rare or expensive prints of any films in your collection? As I mentioned earlier, I did have a decent amount of obscure rare VHS horror tapes, but I ended up selling a good chunk of them, so my rare collection has dwindled. Do you stick firmly to horror cult movies from the 80s and 90s? No. Like I said, I watch movies from, the 50s all the way up to today. I love all genres. I'm a, movie nerd. But 80s horror is kind of like my bread and butter. That's my go-to. And that's what I consider myself, kind of like a completist of 80s horror movies. From all the movies you reviewed, what would make the best remake or reboot? The only one I can think of off the top of my head, because I mentioned it in my review, is I think a remake of Cannibal Apocalypse would be pretty cool. But I'd like to see, slumber party slashers make a comeback as well. I feel like the TNA slasher films of yesteryear are due for a few remakes. What's your top five Linnea Quigley movies? I'd go Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, Return of the Living Dead, Murder Weapon, Night of the Demons, and probably Nightmare Sisters. Better subgenre of horror, slasher or supernatural thriller? I would say supernatural horror is probably a little more enjoyable to me than a slasher, just like I said, because of the repetitious nature of the slasher film. What scene in a horror film traumatized you as a child? So I grew up watching horror movies at a very young age, an age that was probably inappropriate. But I remember being like 3 or 4 and watching Friday the 13th Part 3. I don't have a particular scene that traumatized me, but there was a movie that traumatized me, and it was Rawhead Rex. I was probably 8 years old or so, and it was the only movie that I had my parents actually turn off because I was getting scared. Which is kind of funny now, because I watch Rawhead Rex as an adult, and it's kind of goofy at parts, but as a kid, that guy scared the shit out of me. It's funny you say the Tar Man from Return of the Living Dead, because that was actually one of my go-tos growing up as a kid, so that one didn't scare me too much. If you watch any, what are your favorite horror anime films? I actually haven't seen any horror anime movies. The only anime movie I watched growing up was Fist of the North Star. So if you have any recommendations for me, feel free to recommend some to me in the comment section. Thanks. Best and worst straight to DVD VHS horror sequels. Some of the best that I can think of off the top of my head. Night of the Demons 2 was awesome. Return of the Living Dead Part 3 was pretty good. For worst, I'd probably say Candyman 3. Which would you rather watch, Mac and Me or E.T.? Mac and Me, dude. I've never been a big fan of E.T., and Mac and Me is so enjoyably bad that it's rewatchable. Fave horror documentary. I really like Going to Pieces, the rise and fall of the slasher genre. That's a pretty informative documentary. I also enjoyed the Friday the 13th franchise documentary, Camp Crystal Lake Memories. That's also a very, very well done documentary, as well as Never Sleep Again. That was another good one. The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise documentary was also highly, highly recommended and enjoyable. Who's your favorite Scream Queen? My favorite Scream Queen is Michelle Bauer. So I've been a fan of hers ever since I seen her sunbathing topless in the 1988 classic Demon Warp when I was at the ripe age of 10 years old. If you've been following the channel for a while, I have reviewed many of her movies. I just think she's a great B actress, and she's always delivering the goods. What's your favorite horror film of all time? John Carpenter's The Thing. Favorite horror franchise? My favorite horror franchise is, without a doubt, Friday the 13th. You're either a Michael, Freddy, or Jason guy. I'm a Jason guy. I feel like the Friday 13th films are the most efficient and effective of the slasher films that come out of that decade. I feel like their entries are a little bit stronger than some of the other entries in the Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street series. The Friday 13th films give me what I want in an 80s, horror movie. It gives me the gore. It gives me the gratuitous nudity. I grew up watching these movies on VHS. I watch them every year still. I just, I'm a Jason guy, so that's my favorite franchise to go back to. Will the 80s Horror Central website ever be accessible again, or is it a relic from the past? It may be a relic from the past. About a year and a half ago, I did reactivated it, and I threw a couple reviews up there. But about after a month, I was, back to YouTube reviews and focusing on that. It was very important, though, the website to me, because that's how I first started reviewing movies. Was I was reviewing these obscure movies that there was really no information on the internet about. So it was fun to be the first one posting, pictures and screen caps and stuff from these movies and talking about them. Now these same movies are, 7, 8 years later, are now getting Blu-ray releases from like Vinegar Syndrome and the like. So there's really no need to really upkeep it or to pay the money to upkeep it. But it was very important to me because, like I said, that's how I first got into reviewing movies and dipped my toe into reviewing 80s horror movies. And I did port a lot of those reviews over to YouTube when I was first starting. It made it a little bit easier to edit and to just kind of copy and paste reviews. So it was very important to me, the website, and I feel like it was hopefully helpful to some of you horror fans out there who actually did access it. So the fact that you were checking it out, I appreciate that, and it was really fun to do for a couple years before I started YouTube. But it's probably a relic of the past. I do hope to port most of those reviews over, though, into YouTube format at some point.